This is the worst performing class I've seen, but they met a strange teacher and got a chance to change their fate. She is the world's most formidable assassin, who used her stunning figure and charming face to assassinate many leaders. However, she was helpless against Karasuma, instantly turning into a simple girl, and her voluptuous figure became ineffective. After the first season's crisis, Koro-sensei suggested a courage test, but his real purpose was to matchmake couples and have them write a romance diary. He paired up boys and girls and sent them into a cave, believing the thrilling environment would quickly warm up their relationships. Yet, Nagisa and Kayano, both very timid, panicked after being scared by Koro-sensei and couldn't focus on anything else. On the other hand, Akabane made many promises and discussed past events with Okuda. After Nagisa fearlessly defeated Takaoka, Akabane was shocked by his fearless expression. Though he could beat Nagisa in a fight, it meant nothing for Assassination. He realized for the first time that being fearless was truly terrifying, but he wouldn't be discouraged, and believed he would ultimately be the one to kill the teacher. Okuda blushed at his handsome appearance, but they soon noticed Koro-sensei's tools and began to retaliate, trapping him in the cave with his screams filling the air. Afterward, Koro-sensei collapsed, crying to cover his guilt as the students told him not to worry since they hated rumors at their age. Then Irina and Karasuma appeared, with Irina showing a shy demeanor clearly indicating her interest in Karasuma. Leading everyone to decide to matchmake them as watching others in love is more interesting. Irina told everyone she had tried her best, but Karasuma remained indifferent. Trapped by her past, she couldn't face her feelings, but everyone would help her, especially an excited Koro-sensei, as this was rare material for romance. They prepared to change Irina's style to appeal to conservative Karasuma, opting for a pure look and choosing Yukiko's skirt, which unexpectedly made her look even more attractive, leaving Yukiko feeling quite embarrassed by the comparison. At that moment, Yada suddenly remembered that Karasuma had expressed a liking for a masked female warrior. Hearing this, everyone was helpless. They realized Karasuma admired not the person, but the strength. This guy was really odd. As for food, he only ate burgers and instant noodles, which was unbeatable. Then, everyone prepared to set up a romantic dinner, aiming to make Karasuma understand Irina's feelings, regardless of the outcome. At night, the students occupied all the seats in the restaurant, forcing Karasuma to go on a date with Irina. Irina not only tied her hair into a ponytail, but also wore a cape, looking completely different from before. At that moment, Karasuma spoke up, admitting he hadn't expected the students to master the basics so firmly, confident that they would complete the task in the second semester, but not without Irina's help. His words reminded Irina of her painful childhood. She cut her hair tie with a dinner knife, returning to her original look, and questioned if he truly understood what killing meant. As soon as she spoke, she regretted it, having intended to confess her feelings but messing it up instead. The students mocked her, but Karasuma didn't dwell on it, focused on the mission ahead. He planned to train these kids properly next term. But what was that kiss about? Was it Irina's new tactic? Afterwards, the students returned to their lives, preparing to enjoy the last day of summer vacation. However, Koro-sensei gathered them for a summer festival activity, even calling Lovro to invite him. But Lovro, being on a mission, had to decline. This reminded him of Nagisa, who had mastered his techniques in just a few days, a once-in-a-century genius. Then, a mysterious man appeared, making a gun gesture with his finger towards Lovro, who then fell in a pool of blood, proving the terror of the name Grim Reaper through action. The summer festival began at night, but Chiba and Rinka were disappointed. They were kicked out by the shooting game stall owner for being too good. Akabane used his mathematical knowledge to crack the odds of a lottery, intimidating the owner into giving him a game console. Isogai caught many fish through previous training, planning to use them as dinner ingredients. Nagisa and Kayano also enjoyed themselves, while teacher Irina was busy freeloading at the Merchants Association. Everyone integrated their assassination skills into daily life, but Koro-sensei was busy using his clones to run a stall, as his usual salary was not enough for his spending. Then, fireworks signaled the upcoming new term. The higher-ups were very satisfied with Class E's assassination performance, so they increased the bounty again. A successful collective assassination would share 30 billion yen, so Class E would not stop here. One day, after discovering a nationwide surplus of eggs, Kayano devised the pudding explosion plan. They made a 30-meter tall pudding and placed bombs and bullets at the bottom. Koro-sensei, unable to resist desserts, would be killed when he came close enough to trigger the explosion. Fearing Koro-sensei might get tired of the taste, Kayano also created dozens of flavors in an irregular arrangement to keep him eating. The process was scientifically based and well-researched. Kayano told everyone that once she made up her mind, she would act, and the Defense Department would even reimburse the expenses, making it a great opportunity. Originally thought to be just a support, Kayano also showed great initiative and action, changing everyone's view of her. After cooling the pudding and topping it with caramel, Koro-sensei was moved to tears, and the students quickly found excuses to leave. Koro-sensei couldn't wait to dive into the pudding, ready to explode the bomb at the right moment. However, remembering all her efforts over these days, Kayano suddenly felt reluctant. Ryoma grabbed her, reminding her to think about the 30 billion yen bounty. But in the next second, Koro-sensei appeared behind them, having smelled the bomb and gone underground to disarm it. He even reminded Takabayashi to use a scentless bomb next time. To avoid wasting food, he took out the clean pudding and shared it with the students. Although the assassination plan failed, everyone still enjoyed the delicious food. Nagisa went to comfort Kayano, surprised by how much she had done without telling anyone. Kayano told her that a true blade must remain a secret, even from friends. In the afternoon, Class E played a cops and robbers game with Karasuma and Koro-sensei as the cops. Students tried hard to avoid being caught, as getting caught meant doubling their homework. However, with Karasuma's overwhelming strength, it was an unfair match, and 4 students were captured in less than 2 minutes. Koro-sensei, in charge of guarding, immediately pushed them to study. Taiga took the chance to call Sugaya, but he too couldn't escape. Irina imagined overpowering Karasuma if he made a move, but he ended up dunking her in water instead. Sugino learned of this and rushed to rescue her, instructing Taiga to distract Koro-sensei. Taiga bribed Koro-sensei with a photo of a beautiful woman, forcing him to let them escape. An infuriated Karasuma later warned him never to let anyone go again. However, Yada quickly played the sympathy card, claiming her younger brother was seriously ill and constantly cheering for her, not wanting to disappoint him. Koro-sensei softened instantly and allowed everyone to leave swiftly. The students won the game, causing Karasuma to break down. "You get to be the good guy. I have to be the villain." But the exercise proved beneficial for the students. On his way home, Nagisa accidentally saw a wanted poster for a voyeur who looked just like Koro-sensei, accused of stealing women's underwear. The next day, all classmates cast disdainful glances at him. Koro-sensei refused to admit it, insisting that he was shaking fries at an altitude of 10,000 meters that night. But no one believed him. Usually peeking at adult magazines was one thing, but stealing was too much. He was advised to turn himself in. To prove his innocence, Koro-sensei decided to publicly destroy his adult magazines. Only then did the students discover the class roster marked with girls' bra sizes. Koro-sensei, unable to explain, tried to divert the topic with a barbecue, but mistakenly pulled out a string of women's lingerie, leaving the students disappointed. Akabane felt something was off. Given Koro-sensei's speed, if he wanted to commit a crime, he surely wouldn't leave so much evidence behind. Therefore, the real culprit must be someone else trying to frame Koro-sensei. Only someone familiar with Koro-sensei's routine would know enough to do this. So they decided to investigate and staked out near the girls' homes. Just then, Koro-sensei arrived, but he looked more like a thief. Soon, a man in a helmet appeared and quickly stole underwear. Koro-sensei immediately chased after him. After removing the helmet, they were shocked to find it was one of Karasuma's subordinates. Suddenly, white cloth rose from the ground, trapping Koro-sensei inside, and Shiro appeared, revealing himself as the mastermind. Koro-sensei tried to break free, but his tentacles started dissolving upon touching the cloth. Then, Itona prepared for his revenge. Worse still, Shiro, learning from past lessons, had equipped Itona's tentacles with special gloves that would dissolve Koro-sensei's skin upon contact. Koro-sensei was knocked down by Itona but dodged the fatal blow. If it had been the first term's strength, they might have succeeded, but Koro-sensei was continuously improving. Only a teacher who grows can better educate his students. Using his prior skill of absolute defense, he mastered a new technique. He compressed his tentacles, and a bright white light burst out, shattering the white cloth and stunning Itona. Koro-sensei caught him and let Shiro leave. As a teacher, he would take good care of Itona and clarify he wasn't the underwear thief. However, suddenly Itona knelt, convulsing. Realizing the repeated failures had caused the tentacles to erode his nerves, Shiro decisively abandoned him, as no one would invest in a failure. As Itona went berserk again, Koro-sensei had to let him go to protect everyone. Due to Itona undergoing daily adaptation treatments to ease the rejection of his tentacles, he would suffer hellish torment without them. Without intervention, he'd go mad and die within 3 days. At this time, Itona was wreaking havoc in a mobile phone store. Akabane thought Shiro was despicable for treating everyone like pawns and suggested they ignore the situation. However, Koro-sensei told him that as a teacher, he could never abandon his student, a vow he made when he became a teacher. Itona finally realized that previous encouragements were false, and only true strength could win people over. Just then, his classmates appeared, welcoming him to join Class E. If he wanted to fight, Koro-sensei offered to do so in private. Before Itona could respond, they were attacked by dust bombs designed for Koro-sensei. Shiro then took Itona away, setting a new trap for Koro-sensei, marking Itona's last utility. After ensuring his students were safe, Koro-sensei followed them. Upon arrival, Shiro immediately activated powerful lights to slow Koro-sensei down and began shooting wildly at Itona, who was restrained by a special net. Koro-sensei protected him with his body. Seeing Shiro's true nature, Itona realized he had been deceived. Fortunately, the students arrived in time to defeat the soldiers and destroy the lights. Shiro gave up the opportunity and deemed Itona worthless. Koro-sensei told everyone that removing Itona's obsession with power and victory could free him from his tentacles. After seeing Itona attack the phone store, Yuzuki sensed something was wrong and started investigating. Finding out his parents ran a mobile parts factory. After the factory went bankrupt and his parents abandoned him, Itona's relentless desire to kill the teacher might also have been an attempt to gain the bounty to help his family. Ryoma thought it wasn't a big deal. Everyone has their troubles and just needs to vent. So he took care of Itona by first taking him to Takuya's ramen shop to fill up. However, Itona commented that it was the old version of ramen and would be phased out if not upgraded. Then, Yoshida took him street racing to distract him with excitement, but ended up ejecting Itona from the car. Seeing their failure, Hazama pulled out a revenge novel, hoping its unhappy ending would convince Itona to give up, but Itona went berserk again. He declared he wouldn't end up useless like them, and vowed to defeat Koro-sensei. Seeing this, Yoshida fled, but Ryoma confronted him directly, admitting he once felt the same, but realized it was unachievable and better to give up early. Angered, Itona lashed out with his tentacles, but Ryoma caught them. He told Itona that under Koro-sensei's encouragement, Takuya was continuously learning and improving his business, promising a transformation of the ramen shop. The same went for Yoshida. Despite difficulties, they wouldn't degenerate. It didn't matter if they couldn't kill their opponent now, or if they failed multiple times, as long as they succeeded eventually. Ryoma's words diminished Itona's murderous intent, and Koro-sensei resolved the issue with the tentacles. Although losing his power, Itona gained many friends. The next day, he came to class not by breaking through the wall, but even becoming close friends with Ryoma and others. In boys' eyes, the only thing they unanimously agree on is always girls. When Itona first arrived in the assassination classroom, Koro-sensei immediately had him undergo intensive tutoring, which reignited his murderous intent. He then built a remote-controlled tank equipped with a dedicated camera and shooting gun, aimed to hit Koro-sensei's heart beneath his thigh, ensuring his death. However, as soon as the tank was deployed, it accidentally captured upskirt views of the girls, instantly diverting the boys' attention. Technical advisor Takabayashi proposed a plan, and Taiga took on the task, asking Ritsu to write a program to modify the camera. After succeeding, they tried again, but crashed on the stairs. Yoshida immediately took over the drive system task, adding camouflage for better concealment and enhancing the navigation map. The next day, the revamped tank ventured out but encountered a weasel by the back mountain. As Itona controlled and shot at it, he enraged the weasel. When retrieved, the tank was severely damaged, but this incident helped Itona bond with his classmates and integrate into Class E. Although the mission failed, he wasn't giving up, echoing Ryoma's words that success in the end is all that matters. Taiga agreed, insisting they scout under all girls' skirts within 3 months. However, murderous intent loomed as a girl immediately questioned whose idea it was. Itona decisively blamed Taiga, who denied it. Suddenly, Ritsu activated, stating the requested program was ready, and the other boys distanced themselves, still facing the girls' scolding. Only Akabane, who had skipped class, avoided trouble. Seeing this, Itona immediately found and slipped away with Akabane. The next day, Kimura was downcast. His parents, being police officers, named him Masayoshi Kimura, which often led to him being mocked at social gatherings, a situation he feared would persist even at graduation. His parents believed having a name was good enough and saw no reason for complaints. Korosensei understood them well, considering Irina and Karasuma never used his real name, always resorting to Hei and you instead. However, seeing the strong aversion his students had towards their names, Korosensei suggested everyone write down 5 nicknames. He would randomly select one, and they would use these during a nickname assassination game. This would also prepare them for hotel crises, allowing them to cooperate without revealing their identities. Soon, everyone headed to the back mountain to assassinate Karasuma. The nicknames were a bit absurd, but ignoring the melodramatic choices, their performance was solid. They cornered Karasuma, with Chiba launching the first attack. Karasuma had anticipated this and was prepared, but Kimura managed to successfully strike from behind. Afterwards, Korosensei asked how they felt about using nicknames. The response was overwhelmingly negative, describing it as the most embarrassing moment ever. However, Kimura didn't understand why he was the only one to use his real name. Korosensei explained that changing a name was easy, but if Kimura succeeded in assassinating him, the media would praise him as living up to his name. Thus, the name itself wasn't important. What mattered was the achievements of the person bearing it. Korosensei then chose a new nickname for himself, Prince of Fate as Swift as the Wind, which was instantly ridiculed by the students, renaming him Idiotic Perverted Octopus. Although the nicknames brought a day of joy, they wouldn't last. After all, this was the assassination classroom. Meanwhile, Gakushu was talking with his father. Asano did not want Class A to fall behind. As a leader at the top, he emphasized the importance of knowing when and where to win, then figuring out how to win. Utilizing loopholes in the rules and making the most of each piece's role are qualities that a superior should have. If Gakushu could not learn this, he would never surpass him. However, Gakushu intended to prove himself in his own way. He is the biggest villain in the assassination classroom. He can learn anything within 3 days. Facing a karate teacher with 30 years of practice, on the first day he was beaten until he vomited. On the second day, he used his anger to focus and learn. By the third day, he easily defeated his opponent. His talent is monstrous. Recently, students from Class E found out Isogai was working part-time in a restaurant and curiously went to visit. Whether greeting guests or pouring tea, they admired how cool he looked. He worked part-time because his mother was ill, and he needed to support his family. This is the charisma of a class president. Maihara and Taiga remarked that this guy had no flaws except being poor, adding to Isogai's unique charm. He was popular with women, whereas Nagisa had the advantage of good looks. Nagisa received love letters as a heartthrob, while Yada's love letters were seen as impure love. Thus, sometimes, being handsome matters. Just then, Gakushu suddenly barged in with others. Isogai was demoted to Class E because of his part-time job. If reported again, he could be expelled. Gakushu threatened them, saying if they could beat Class A in the upcoming pole toppling contest, he would keep their secret. Isogai, knowing Class A's strength, didn't want to burden his classmates. His classmates immediately scolded him, reminding him of Class E's motto, never abandon, never give up. They just needed to win the contest. Korosensei was pleased to see this. Isogai always prioritized class harmony, which is why he had such prestige today, a vital quality for a leader. However, Karasuma knew the pole toppling contest heavily favored numbers, putting Class E at a disadvantage, especially with Gakushu as a formidable opponent. Soon, the sports festival began. In the bread-eating contest, Sumire excelled. The rest of the students used their assassination training to integrate strength and balance into the competitions, easily dominating. Yet, Isogai worried about the pole toppling contest. Koro-sensei comforted him, saying that an individual's power is very limited in society, but his ability to fight alongside others was stronger than Gakushu's. Even in difficulties, everyone would face them together. The pole toppling contest soon began. However, once the game started, it was revealed that Class A had brought in external support. Gakushu initially thought Class E, being fewer in number, would abandon defense and attack directly. Instead, they formed a complete defensive position. Gakushu immediately sent the reinforcements to attack, aiming not just to topple the pole, but to crush everyone from Class E. Yoshida and another classmate rushed forward to meet the attack and were knocked into the spectator seats. The rest of Class E didn't panic. Isogai issued a command, and the students at the front instantly jumped, using their poles to firmly pin down the reinforcements. Gakushu then ordered his flanking squads to charge. Seeing a large gap in the middle, Isogai seized the opportunity to attack. But just as he reached halfway, the flanks quickly closed in, surrounding them. Karasuma and others were very anxious, but Koro-sensei told them not to worry, as he had specifically taught Isogai tactics for fighting outnumbered. Isogai quickly adapted and issued a new tactic. Everyone ran towards the spectator stands. Class A immediately followed, but were hindered by the chairs, causing confusion. After all, the match had no defined area, so their battlefield was the entire school. Gakushu remained unconcerned, focused only on protecting the pole, dismissing the others as mere distractions. However, the next moment, Yoshida and his partner suddenly rushed towards the pole. Their earlier injuries revealed to be a ruse for this surprise attack, while the rest ran towards Gakushu. Yoshida was unexpectedly thrown out, and Gakushu quickly adjusted his position. Despite Gakushu's ability to control the battle, Koro-sensei doubted his success against Isogai's ability to alter the battle with his teammates. Isogai used his shoulders to help his classmates climb up, and they swiftly captured Gakushu. Only Takabayashi and Ryoma were left guarding the position, and they managed to subdue several reinforcements using the principle of leverage. Class A's reinforcements rushed back, and both sides were soon locked in a stalemate. Isogai knew the moment had arrived. He signaled to Itona and then helped him jump. Itona descended from above and successfully toppled the pole, winning the match in an incredible manner. Afterwards, Asano criticized Gakushu again, blaming the loss entirely on his leadership. Some reinforcements disagreed, prompting Asano to strip off his clothes and challenge them himself. He defeated all four. He told Gakushu that one must be prepared to die after a loss, as it is the only way to grow from failure. On the other hand, Class E was very happy, and Isogai gained a large following of fans. Gakushu promised them he would not go back on his word, but warned that next time he would destroy the entire Class E. Everyone took it lightly, but this incident showcased Isogai's leadership quality. Class E is lucky to have such a leader. This was the first time Koro-sensei got angry with his students. Faced with Ryoma's excuses after making a mistake, Koro-sensei knocked him down and tore up the review materials in front of everyone. He forbade them from studying in any way before the exams. He needed them to understand that there are things more important than studying. The reason stemmed from a recent incident where the students, pressured by exams, rushed to school using parkour and injured an elderly man, causing a minor fracture in his right leg that required 2 weeks of bed rest. Koro-sensei was furious when he learned of this and negotiated with Karasuma to handle the situation. He told the students that if they didn't care about the weak, they were no different from the enemy. Therefore, before the exams, he decided to teach them a significant lesson. The students realized their mistake. After scolding them, Koro-sensei immediately sent a basket of flowers and apologized to the elderly man. However, the man, a kindergarten principal, only asked the students to take care of the children to forgive them. The next day, the children tormented the students, except for Yukiko, who was liked by the kids. Takebayashi suggested they secretly study there and treat the labor as the cost of earning a reward to ease their distress. The others didn't understand how he could speak so seriously when stripped down to his underwear. While they discussed this, Sakura criticized them, saying their work should at least justify the oxygen they consumed. Everyone was speechless, having never encountered such a sharp-tongued child. Sakura, the boss of the kindergarten and there for 5 years, had been a chronic truant at her previous school. She then handed Nagisa a broom to work, but it broke. After inquiring, they learned that the principal brought children who skipped school or had no school to attend here, with negligible costs. So, despite the lack of funds and repairs, the students decided to renovate the school properly. The next day during class, Kayano led a play to capture the children's attention, incorporating playful fights and assassination techniques which earned unanimous praise from the kids. Sugino and Sugaya were in charge of building repairs, while Ritsu developed specific architectural plans. Nakamura and others tutored the children, but Nagisa faced challenges with Sakura, who was far behind due to truancy, and he couldn't find an effective teaching method for her. Upon asking why she skipped school, Sakura revealed she was often bullied, and her parents, rather than being supportive, only lectured her, and she thought Nagisa would do the same. Just then, a kitten climbed a tree and couldn't come down. Sakura explained to Nagisa that attending school had similar risks. The higher you climb, the greater the risk of falling, so she preferred to stay put. However, Sugino and Taiga successfully rescued the cat using a human ladder, leaving the children awestruck. Nagisa explained to Sakura that after understanding the dangers of heights through many experiences of looking up and being looked down upon, they learned to climb adeptly. They also remembered the dangers after falling a few times. This conversation profoundly changed Sakura's view of Nagisa and ignited her desire to learn. 2 weeks flew by, and everyone learned much that wasn't taught in school. The principal was discharged from the hospital and agreed to keep their efforts secret, as he too was a teacher wanting what's best for the children, and couldn't reject Koro-sensei. However, he was surprised by the new buildings they constructed using wood and materials from the back mountain, following Ritsu's plans, which completely transformed the site. They even added a power system to the principal's bicycle, charging it as the children played on the equipment. The principal didn't expect them to achieve such good results, so much so that it somewhat displeased him. They even turned his old dentures into a bicycle bell. But no matter how well they did, if the children didn't accept their efforts, he wouldn't forgive them. At that moment, Sakura came running with her report card to thank Nagisa. She had followed his advice, only attending school for exams and not giving bullies a chance to target her. Nagisa shared his secret technique with her. Attack before the opponent is ready, a tactic from their Class E. Sakura was delighted and hoped Nagisa would teach her more often. Seeing this, the principal forgave them, and Koro-sensei felt reassured. However, the joy was short-lived. The next day during the midterm exams, Class E suffered a devastating loss, with many students dropping in rank. Gakushu and others quickly mocked them, but they overlooked Akabane. This time, Akabane managed to surpass and crush the top 4 students, securing the second highest score in the school and reclaiming respect for Class E. He warned the others that Class E had merely held back this time, but would show no mercy in the future. All this was within Koro-sensei's expectations. Over the summer, Akabane had been studying new materials, so even without 2 weeks of review, he still succeeded. Afterwards, the students apologized to Karasuma, realizing their mistakes and understanding that they could use their skills to help others, not just for money and grades, but with caution. After witnessing everyone's progress, Koro-sensei planned a barbecue. However, a sudden attack interrupted everything. The attackers wanted to demonstrate new national equipment developed for assassination, repaying the teacher's instruction, but also to protect others. Koro-sensei was very satisfied. When he first arrived, the classroom was filled with murky intents to kill, but now it was filled with warm intents to kill, reminding him of an old friend's words that one day he would meet such adversaries. Now they were right before him. Irina's birthday arrived, but Lovra was unreachable, and Karasuma lacked a sense of romance, leaving her feeling lonely. Sensing this, the students decided to help. They led Irina to the back mountain, continuously asking about her glorious past, which made her unexpectedly popular. Meanwhile, other students headed into the city to choose a gift for her using their class funds. While hesitating, they met a flower seller who told them that despite numerous options for gifts, flowers remain the top choice because they symbolize not only sentiments, but also the beautiful yet fleeting nature of life, similar to humans. After buying the flowers, they handed them to Karasuma to deliver to Irina. Confused, Karasuma didn't understand why he should be the one to give them. Akabane explained that the assassination plan also needed Irina's help, so it was essential to maintain good relations among colleagues. Karasuma agreed, and Ritsu immediately notified the others to retreat. Irina was speechless and returned to the office where Karasuma presented the flowers, explaining the delay was due to work. Irina was overjoyed. Previously, people had tried to please her with various luxury items, but compared to Karasuma's gift, those were worthless. However, Karasuma then mentioned this might be the first and last time, as if they failed their mission, the Earth would be doomed. Irina angrily opened the window and knocked Koro-sensei down, realizing it was everyone's idea. She felt angry about being made fun of, stating they were just colleagues, and she was done playing the teacher game. After throwing the flowers at Karasuma, she left the classroom. The students were somewhat dissatisfied with Karasuma, finding him too cold. However, Karasuma believed that the assassination classroom did not need a blade dulled by romance. If Irina couldn't restrain herself, he would hire a new assassin. Irina wasn't really angry, but she knew her capabilities and staying further wouldn't yield anything new. It seemed like an opportunity, but suddenly a man appeared behind her, and she vanished for 3 days. Everyone was worried, but Koro-sensei went off to Brazil to watch soccer, telling them to notify him if anything happened. As soon as Koro-sensei left, the flower seller came to the classroom, and everyone realized something was amiss. The man revealed his identity as the top assassin, Reaper. He explained that while flowers are beautiful and disarm suspicion, most flowers attract insects. Now, Irina was in his hands. This was his first lesson to them. If they wanted to save Irina, they should come to the designated place at night. If they didn't show, Irina would die. Ryoma tried to disrupt his rhythm by claiming Class E didn't care about Irina, but the Reaper had already investigated and knew they had developed a deep bond with her, so they wouldn't ignore her plight. He then scattered flower petals into the air and vanished. Ryoma pulled out the combat gear, ready for a rescue. No one from Class E backed down. They were ready to use their strength to protect others. At night, they arrived at the specified location and used drones for reconnaissance. Sumire reminded Ritsu to notify Koro-sensei immediately if they weren't back by midnight. The group then sneaked into the building, but everything was under the Reaper's control. He manipulated the elevator and led them to a cell where Irina was held. Taiga quickly drew attention to give others time to escape. As the walls were blasted open, they successfully escaped. Meanwhile, Koro-sensei, who was waiting for a match, sensed something was off. After the students escaped, he asked Ritsu for directions, but found out she had been compromised by the Reaper. The Reaper then appeared in front of everyone, unmaterialized in form, heightening their sense of crisis. Yoshida and another student rushed to attack, but were instantly defeated. Nagisa, masking his killing intent with anger, prepared his special move but froze before he could clap his hands. Akabane and the others were also incapacitated. The Reaper explained to Nagisa that the clap technique had a higher stage. Human consciousness has wavelengths, and the closer it is to the peak, the more sensitive it is to stimuli. At the moment the opponent's consciousness reaches this peak sensitivity, they experience a powerful shock that stuns them longer than his own methods. Meanwhile, the other students were returning to rescue Irina. Just as they set Irina down, she took the opportunity to overpower them all, delivering her final lesson to them. Afterwards, all the students were locked up. However, Akabane didn't think they could defeat Koro-sensei, and Karasuma had said that when students face insurmountable obstacles, it's time for the teachers to step in. At that moment, Koro-sensei and Karasuma, tracking by scent, arrived at the scene. The Reaper and Irina repeated their old tricks, performing a ruse in front of them. The Reaper told them he hadn't killed Lovro. Instilling fear was his way of keeping competitors away. He revealed that he had rigged Irina and the students with bombs, threatening to detonate them and kill everyone. After pushing Irina forward, she suddenly broke Koro-sensei's leg. The Reaper then activated a mechanism, trapping him in a cell made of material specifically designed to restrain him. Faced with this predicament, Koro-sensei decided to lick the cell open, but the Reaper warned that he would detonate the bombs if he continued. He then prepared to crush both the people and the cell with water pressure of 200 tons per second. Karasuma, hearing this, was angered. He had no objection to dealing with Koro-sensei but refused to involve the students. Irina felt guilty, but as a professional assassin, she was only concerned with the outcome. Karasuma once asked his superiors what to do in such situations. They told him to handle it as he saw fit, essentially making him take the blame. Karasuma kicked the Reaper, valuing the lives of the 27 individuals over the Earth itself. If the Reaper made a move, he would stop him. Seeing the serious Karasuma, the students exclaimed how cool he looked. He also reminded Irina that being a professional assassin isn't something to be taken lightly. To avoid disrupting his plan, the Reaper had to lure Karasuma away. Then Irina defused the bomb. In her eyes, Karasuma couldn't defeat the Reaper, who had even managed to capture Koro-sensei. At that moment, Irina received a message from the Reaper to distract Karasuma so she could attack from behind. Karasuma caught up and used a metal door to block the bomb, successfully averting the crisis. But as he confronted the Reaper, Irina suddenly fired a shot. Karasuma told Irina to stop, warning her she would definitely die if she continued. But Irina was already prepared to die, feeling only the Reaper could understand her past. However, the Reaper betrayed Irina and detonated the bomb, burying her and Karasuma under the rubble. Indeed, there was no trust among assassins. Yet, Karasuma survived again due to his reflexes. Later, as Karasuma prepared to continue his pursuit, Koro-sensei asked about the situation. Learning of Irina's injuries, all the students became anxious and begged him to save people first. But Karasuma felt that collaborating with the Reaper meant accepting the consequences. Kurahashi tried to persuade Karasuma, suggesting Irina's troubled childhood led to her poor decisions, but at 21, she still had time to correct her mistakes, just as Karasuma had forgiven them. Irina had grown up in a war-torn world, surviving only by bloodshed. Dying because of betrayal seemed like fate, yet Karasuma chose to forgive and tore his shirt to bandage Irina's wounded hand. Irina, in turn, got a nosebleed seeing Karasuma's physique. The Reaper found the cell empty and triggered the bomb, but Takabayashi had already dismantled it. The others, using the effects of their combat suits, blended into the walls, deceiving the Reaper. As the Reaper prepared to return and investigate, Karasuma, sensing his presence, asked Irina for help. Despite coming from different worlds, Karasuma expressed the need for Irina in his and the students' world. When the Reaper appeared, Irina immediately confronted him. However, the Reaper considered betrayal a normal occurrence. Hearing this, Irina began to let go of her grievances, but the Reaper also had to face her betrayal. Suddenly, Karasuma appeared and embraced him. After the opponent stood up, Karasuma realized he had been wearing a human skin mask all along to better disguise himself. He had even cut off his entire face. The Reaper declared he would kill Karasuma and make a new mask from his face. They immediately began hand-to-hand combat, attacking and defending in turn. The Reaper told Karasuma that he hadn't actually suffered a tragic past. Those stories were just to win over Irina. His parents were killed by an assassin, but upon witnessing it, he felt no sadness, instead admiring the skill as beautiful. He believed assassination was a combination of beauty and skill. After saying this, he threw flowers into the air, distracting Karasuma, then aimed his finger, embedded with a gun, at him and shot, piercing Karasuma's artery. Karasuma immediately bled profusely and fell to his knees. The Reaper approached to check on him but found tentacles behind Karasuma. Suddenly, Karasuma stood up and kicked him in the groin. It turned out that Karasuma's ability to communicate with Koro-sensei was also due to the tentacles. The Reaper stated that no one but him could kill Koro-sensei and asked Karasuma to spare him. But Karasuma knocked him out with one punch, believing his students could achieve the same. Seeing the Reaper's state, Koro-sensei lamented that his educators were incompetent. He commented that if the Reaper's skills were used in orthopedics or plastic surgery, he would be a genius. Unfortunately, one's life and death are determined by their world and other people. Later, as Irina attempted to flee, she was caught by everyone, but no one blamed her. However, she needed to return to work properly, as everyone still wanted to hear her stories. At this moment, Karasuma also presented her with flowers, which he had obtained as spoils of war through his own consciousness, hoping she would like them. This instantly captured Irina's heart. Koro-sensei then told Karasuma that he no longer wanted anyone to involve students in assassination, and Karasuma agreed to his proposal. He applied to his superiors that assassins involving students shouldn't receive any rewards. The superiors didn't refuse, as countries were collaborating on a new plan called the Final Assassination Plan. Karasuma didn't know how the assassination classroom would end, but in his heart, it was the most beautiful place. The boy was harshly slammed into the desk by his mother just for expressing his wish not to change classes. In her eyes, girls had better job prospects, so she disregarded her son's wishes and raised him as a girl. This made Nagisa's life feel like a life simulation game named after his mother. With only 4 months until advancement, his classmates were considering their future careers. Irina, as the guidance teacher, even changed into conservative clothing to better blend in, but ended up looking more attractive. At this time, Nagisa discovered that someone else had filled out his career aspirations, all from a girl's perspective. However, Akabane's dream was to become a bureaucrat, working behind the scenes to govern the country, a role Koro-sensei fully supported as it suited his abilities. Seeing Ryoma lost in the hallway, Akabane suggested he could be a bureaucrat since he would attract public attention, making it easier for himself to work behind the scenes. Nakamura aimed to be a diplomat. Her language skills had always been excellent, drawing much attention. Yet she wished to be ordinary so she could mingle and play with the underachievers. Only upon seeing her parents' disappointed tears did she realize what she had lost. In Class E, both dreams could become reality thanks to Koro-sensei. Everyone in the class had a goal, but Nagisa was conflicted. While helping Irina remove a label from her clothing, unnoticed by her, he realized his own talent for assassination. He asked Koro-sensei whether he should become an assassin. Nagisa's talent for assassination was undeniable. He could attack anyone fearlessly, a crucial skill for an assassin. However, he was disregarding his own safety and dignity. Koro-sensei hoped he would carefully consider where and for whom his talents should be used. After returning home, Nagisa's mother pushed his report card in front of him. He had ranked 52nd, just 2 places shy of moving up to Class D. She planned to bribe the head of Class D, but Nagisa was unwilling. Her face darkened upon hearing this, and she slammed his head against the desk repeatedly while berating him. His father had left home, unable to communicate with her any longer. Nagisa's life had to follow the plan set by his mother, including the schools he attended and the company he would enter, all areas where she had failed. Therefore, she believed Nagisa, as a girl, must succeed for her. However, Nagisa could never escape his mother's obsession. She told him she would discuss transferring him to Class E the next day, but his attempt to object was stifled by her intimidating demeanor. That night, Nagisa confided in Koro-sensei. The next day, as everyone was at a loss, Koro-sensei disguised himself as Karasuma. Soon, his mother arrived at the office. Koro-sensei politely complimented her, saying she was as beautiful as Nagisa, which upset her. She pulled Nagisa's hair and discussed his promotion and future plans. When Koro-sensei asked if Nagisa agreed, she insisted that he knew nothing and that it was natural for parents who had failed to pave the way for him. Koro-sensei then understood why Nagisa had such a personality. He removed his wig and declared that children are the masters of their own lives, not tools to cover her psychological scars. He would not agree to the transfer unless Nagisa wished it. His mother erupted in anger, berating Koro-sensei before storming out of the classroom. Koro-sensei apologized but expressed a desire for Nagisa to voice his own thoughts. He believed that with resolve, Nagisa could overcome these difficulties and start his life anew in this classroom. Later, his mother drugged his food to incapacitate him, determined not to let anyone hinder her plans. She then took Nagisa to the classroom, intending for him to burn it down and leave Class E voluntarily. However, Nagisa couldn't do it. His mother's angry words confined him like flames. But suddenly, an assassin appeared, quieting Nagisa's mother. She promptly started shouting at him, only to be subdued by a whip. The higher-ups had said killing the boy would mean no bounty, but they hadn't forbidden killing anyone else. This made her afraid. However, Nagisa noticed the assassin's carelessness and decided to use his skills to protect his mother. As he approached the assassin, he voiced his intentions. He would prove his choices were right by graduation, then cut his long hair and gradually repay his upbringing costs. Then, he unleashed a deadly technique, instantly taking down the assassin. His mother felt Nagisa drifting away and fainted. Koro-sensei caught her and drove them both back home. Now, Nagisa had made up his mind. If the assassination plan ended, he wouldn't become an assassin, considering it a dangerous job. However, his talents could be used for other purposes, like protecting others. The next day, Nagisa voluntarily cooked and took over other household chores to relieve his mother's stress. and she finally stopped restricting him. Shortly after, the school hosted a campus festival. Gakushu teamed up with local businesses to inject funds and stand out. Koro-sensei encouraged everyone to participate because the competition was about overall ability. With a lower budget, creating higher value would naturally attract customers. Class E had a unique resource, the ingredients from the mountain behind them, which were pure, natural, and low cost. Yada went down the mountain to promote their products, but unexpectedly encountered some delinquents from the first season. They threatened to post negative reviews online unless the food was bad, ensuring nothing would sell. However, just looking at the menu photos, the food seemed appetizing. Upon tasting it, it was so delicious, it brought tears. Takuya explained that the noodles were made from acorns and yam for texture. The dip, made from mountain ingredients, had a refreshing taste, and even the soy sauce was specially brewed from pork bones, adding to the deliciousness. The delinquents tried to find faults, but then Irina suddenly appeared, turning their opinions around instantly. She flirted and convinced them to order one of everything. Lacking enough cash, she gently reminded them of the ATM at the school entrance. They rushed to withdraw money. However, Class E's tactics didn't stop there. They also created a website for promotion. Yet Itona discovered through a drone that Class A was still more popular. Gakushu combined a concert with gourmet food. For a 500 yuan ticket, attendees could enjoy the show while eating. There were several venues and a tour. As long as people were fed, they wouldn't go to the mountain. To attract fans, Gakushu performed himself playing various instruments, a true display of his genius. When the principal arrived with Sakura and others, they too praised the taste. However, he noted that without fame, even the best flavors are useless. He reassured them that as long as the food was good, it would eventually gain widespread renown. During a break, Nakamura learned why Nagisa kept his hair long and came to apologize. She admitted she shouldn't have teased him in the past, but Nagisa didn't mind. While they were talking, Yuji arrived. He discovered they were students at this school from hotel records and rushed to join the campus festival, mainly to see Nagisa. Decisively, Nakamura took off Nagisa's pants and gave him her skirt to wear, thinking Yuji, a wealthy heir, should be exploited. Nagisa, wanting to keep a low profile, took Yuji aside to taste food. Yuji thought this exclusive tasting was a privilege. Nakamura kept suggesting dishes for Nagisa to recommend, and Yuji obediently handed over his wallet, his affluent demeanor obvious. However, Akabane went further, suggesting Nagisa ask for 10,000 yuan for a date. Before Nagisa could make the offer, Red Eye was invited and arrived with a gun, startling Yuji, who prepared to call the police. In a panic, Nagisa explained that he was just a guest from the Hunter Association. Suddenly, Lavro appeared behind them. Although they weren't harmed and were happy about it, the timing was poor. Even the assassin from the first season showed up. Nagisa quickly claimed they were all performers, but Yuji, being the son of a big star, recognized the insincere flattery. Nagisa's smile was genuine in the hotel, but not now. Seeing this, Nagisa confessed that he had been forced to dress this way since childhood, often mistaken for a girl. Yuji was internally devastated. Nagisa told him that even weaknesses and flaws could be turned into weapons if used correctly, a lesson from their assassination classroom. The shop was also built this way, and today's customers were connected through such methods, inspiring each other. After hearing this, Yuji got up to leave. Nagisa tried to return the money, but Yuji declined, saying he just felt foolish. The next day, everyone went up the mountain with trepidation, unsure if today's turnout would exceed Class A's. To their surprise, the mountain path was crowded with visitors, including TV crews. It turned out that Yuji, a famous food blogger, had recommended Class E's shop to his followers, claiming it changed his outlook on life by teaching him how to turn disadvantages into advantages. He explained how, even as a wealthy heir, he could use his allowance to help others. The shop was bustling, and everyone worked together to take care of all the customers, making new connections. By midday, they were running low on ingredients and considered foraging deeper into the mountain. But Koro-sensei stopped them to avoid disrupting the ecological balance. The students were content, happy to have met so many people. At closing time, they welcomed a special guest. Now, Nagisa's mother understood why he stayed. Nagisa wasn't just her shadow, but had grown capable of independence. However, she hoped he would live with her until adulthood, promising not to hinder his post-adulthood plans. Having finally become a more attentive mother, she wanted to care more for Nagisa. She believed that all the fortuitous encounters in the world could become teachers imparting knowledge, and she trusted Koro-sensei to pass on the legacy entrusted to him. Class A came first, and Class E third, a remarkable achievement for just 1.5 days of operation. Their success and universally acclaimed food significantly changed the students' perception of Class E. However, Asano happened to overhear this. To solidify his teaching philosophy, the teacher turned innocent, adorable students into zombies filled with murderous intent in just 2 minutes. They lost their humanity, focusing solely on solving problems, with knowledge eroding their brains like parasites, making life unbearable. Recently, Gakushu reported the festival results to Asano but faced criticism. Asano suggested they could have sabotaged the competing food stall with bad reviews or food poisoning to gain an advantage. However, Gakushu disagreed with his educational philosophy, noting significant progress in Class E, with Class A also improving through competition, and recognizing the importance of camaraderie. Only defeating the weak does not make one strong. Asano didn't explain, but asked Gakushu to wait outside for 3 minutes while he spoke to other students. Gakushu feared a repeat of past tragedies, but this time the impact was worse. Under Asano's influence, the students' perspectives changed completely, harboring only hatred for Class E. Asano demonstrated to Gakushu that what they considered strong could be easily defeated with just a few words. He declared he would take full responsibility for the upcoming final exams, asserting that without strength, there is no value or meaning. This time, he intended to teach Gakushu a harsh lesson. Gakushu never experienced a father-son bond, with home feeling like another classroom where Asano maintained a perpetual teacher-student relationship, never releasing his control over his students. But Asano's terror extended beyond this. Noticing changes in the city, he suspected Karasuma and others were likely executing a new assassination plan. Asano then demanded a hush money of 1 billion yen from Karasuma, claiming it was for the safety of the students. Karasuma had no choice but to agree. But this experience revealed the extent of Asano's terror, showing how he manipulated the defense ministry with ease. Meanwhile, Koro-sensei began to inspire the class, hoping everyone could rank in the top 50 and graduate proudly as students of Class E. However, Sugino learned that Asano had become the homeroom teacher of Class A, making their goal challenging. Asano's extraordinary leadership, manipulative rhetoric, and keen observation skills intimidated everyone. Even his teaching prowess was comparable to Koro-sensei's. No student in Class A dared defy his lessons, and the class atmosphere was akin to hell. Asano allowed Gakushu to go home to study alone this time, instructing him to just focus on himself. Gakushu sought help from Class E, believing that if they could defeat Class A, it would challenge Asano's educational philosophy. Yada wondered if Gakushu intended to change his father's mind by proving him wrong. Gakushu had no such plans. He aimed to surpass his father, whether as a parent or a formidable individual. This was their way of interacting as father and son. However, Class A, apart from him, was not in a normal state. Asano used their hatred for Class E to push them to their limits in their studies. If they emerged victorious, they would trust this method, but such an approach had its limitations. Against true power, they would be utterly defeated. Therefore, Gakushu implored Class E to win. Despite his arrogance, Class E could see his sincerity. Akabane mocked him, telling Gakushu to worry about himself since he planned to secure the top rank this time. The class reminded him not to repeat past mistakes, or he wouldn't even make the top 10. Akabane awkwardly punched Ryoma during the tease. Isugai reassured Gakushu not to worry, as this challenge also benefited Class E. They would give their all, with Akabane even bringing a fierce resolve to the battle. But Asano increased the difficulty of the exam questions again, causing even the teachers who set the questions to worry for the students. Then, Koro-sensei approached Asano, marking their final round in the educational competition. Koro-sensei was grateful for the acceptance and seized the opportunity to make a request. If he won, he wanted Asano to explain why he became a teacher. Koro-sensei mentioned that people usually become teachers for 2 reasons: to share their successes or failures. Which one would Asano be? With 1 week left until the final exams, Koro-sensei used his duplicates to tutor frantically. Soon, the day of the decisive battle arrived. Passing by Class A, Everyone was startled by their zombie-like appearance, feeling a chill run through them. But they were determined not to give up, as this was a battle of fate that would also decide which of the two monsters had more killer intent. During the exam, Class E students gave their all, knowing that losing would leave them regretful even if they succeeded in their assassination mission. They intended to show their second blade without reservation. However, just after the first exam, everyone was exhausted, facing questions that were hellishly difficult compared to the first monster they faced. Class A desperately threw themselves into the fray. When Class E faced danger, Ritsu boldly stepped forward, urging everyone not to give up. Her words successfully boosted morale. In the math battle, they calmly analyzed the paper, sorting questions from easiest to hardest and tackling them one by one. Even if they couldn't beat the boss, they aimed to score as much as possible. Then, an unexpected twist occurred. The penultimate question was a recursive formula, something they had only heard of before. However, Akabane confronted the challenge head-on, throwing a grenade into its midst and successfully resolving the difficult problem. Last week, while tutoring his peers, he had taught this very question. This was Koro-sensei's teaching method, allowing students to explain subjects they excel in to one another for deeper understanding and even boosting team spirit. This approach also eliminated Akabane's weaknesses, making him more perfect. But Gakushu was no less formidable. This time, not being in charge of Class A allowed him to focus and sharpen his own skills, enhancing his strength. Yet which method is more effective would be determined by the showdown between Akabane and him. The educational duel between two great monsters, a fated battle between the best and the worst students. Who will claim the ultimate victory? The key to deciding the winner lies with the geniuses Akabane and Gakushu. Will the cold intent to kill prevail, or will the warm intent rise against the odds? Let's wait and see. As the final question falls like a meteor from the sky, Gakushu and Akabane face their ultimate showdown. Gakushu, analyzing unnecessary language, successfully identifies the essence of the question. To find his space in a cube, he needs to conquer each of the 8 corners, dominating the space, his specialty. Unlike his father, a different type of ruler, the current Asano is blinded by his zeal to prove the correctness of rational education, which destroys rather than shapes individuals. This time, he aims to critically address his father's dominating approach. Meanwhile, Akabane contemplates the problem. Many have seen him as a genius, but he views others as equally gifted. Sugino integrates well into the group. Okuda is engrossed in her passions, and Ryoma is decisive. Everyone has a space Akabane cannot reach, making them all geniuses in their own right. Now, he uses his talent to solve the final question. His focus is vastly different from Gakushu's. If the world extends infinitely, everyone has room to showcase their talents. Distributing this space across different cubes requires 8 people, each taking an eighth to fill their spaces, plus his own to form a perfect circle. Thus, in this cube, his ratio to others is 1-to-1. With this realization, Akabane easily solves the problem without complex calculations, simply understanding that beyond himself lies an infinite world. Soon after, the bell rings. Gakushu is just 2 lines short of finishing, ultimately facing a regrettable defeat. A few days later, Koro-sensei announced the results. Ryoma ranked last in the class but 46th in the grade, meaning all of Class E entered the top 50. Nakamura and others even defeated the top 5, taking the top 7 spots. Akabane beat Gakushu to claim first place. However, Akabane knew without this year, he couldn't have solved the final question. All students burst into cheers, a step closer to their dream school. Class A grew increasingly tired in later exams. No one can sustain such intense focus for long, especially not when hastily trained. Gakushu acknowledged Class A's flawed approach and planned to find a winning strategy for high school, hoping for continued support. Suddenly, a hostile presence loomed behind him. Asano couldn't understand why a group of losers dared to speak so confidently. Life is full of uncertainties, and only at the end does one realize if a battle is life-changing. Thus, no one can afford to fail. Before graduation, he intended to reform everyone's thinking, but the class opposed him. Class E and Gakushu grew stronger through failure, showing Asano's teaching philosophy was incorrect and unsuitable for them. If Asano was displeased, they were willing to join Class E. Gakushu said this was their true sentiment, but Asano knocked him down. Gakushu laughed, noting Asano seemed more like a father out of control. Eventually, all students left the classroom, leaving Asano visibly upset. In contrast, Class E remained harmonious. Koro-sensei said they could move up, but no one wanted to leave, even planning a sneak attack. Suddenly, noise came from outside. Asano had ordered the school building destroyed, planning to move Class E to a new building. Koro-sensei and the students refused, but Asano presented a termination contract on the spot. No one could stop his plans. To avoid termination and save their classroom, they had to gamble with him. Asano prepared 5 workbooks for different subjects and 5 hand grenades, 4 of which were designed to target Koro-sensei, and 1 specifically for killing humans. They looked and smelled the same, and would explode the moment they were released from the hand after pulling the pin. He would place one randomly within any page of the workbooks. Koro-sensei had to solve the first problem on that page to avoid the explosion. Koro-sensei would choose 4 workbooks and Asano the last one. If Koro-sensei gave up or was killed in the explosion, he would still win. However, Ryoma calculated that Asano's chance of losing was only 1 in 5, and he could also forfeit without harm. But Koro-sensei faced the risk of 4 explosions. Asano explained to everyone that the world is filled with injustices, especially between the strong and the weak, which is why he educates his students to become the strong. Koro-sensei, committed to the assassination classroom, agreed to proceed. But upon seeing the problem, he panicked, and the grenade exploded successfully. Asano knew this weakness, and given Koro-sensei's reaction time and thinking speed, trapped him effectively. Furthermore, Asano threatened him with a contract to rush into the next problem without any time to recover. Asano told everyone that assassination is the weak's method against the strong, yet the strong can torment the weak at will. If he secured the assassination reward, he planned to open schools nationwide to teach this principle, with Koro-sensei merely serving as a foundation for his educational philosophy. He is the best teacher in the world, aiming to educate top students. He not only ran his own tutoring classes, but also funded the class with his earnings. However, a student's suicide due to bullying twisted his mindset, gradually turning him into a controlling chairman. He then believed that only by making students strong could they truly survive. Recently, unable to accept failure, Asano gambled the entire Class E, forcing Koro-sensei into his trap where a slight mistake could lead to a grenade death. But just as he thought he had the upper hand, the situation turned. Koro-sensei quickly flipped through the workbook and solved the problem. It turns out that Koro-sensei, in preparing to tutor students, had already reviewed all national workbooks, so he instantly knew the problems by page, except for some forgotten ones in math, which he left for Asano. Asano, disoriented by Class E, devised this strategy out of desperation. Otherwise, he would have thoroughly investigated Koro-sensei. Now cornered, Koro-sensei was curious to see how Asano would face his own demise. Initially, Asano was just a tutor, gentle to his students, and even supplemented the class with his stock trading earnings. His main goal was to nurture good students, tailoring his teaching to individual needs. When Ikeda bullied classmates using his basketball skills, Asano led by example, teaching students that everyone has different strengths and should not use them to bully others. A year later, his students successfully entered their desired middle schools and gave him a tie clip as a gift, affirming his impact. Later, as parents recognized his results, more children enrolled in his tutoring classes. Several years later, he received a call from Ikeda, only to learn of Ikeda's death. Ikeda had been bullied by seniors in a club and ultimately chose to commit suicide. This made Asano question himself. If he hadn't taught his students to be honest and obedient, perhaps Ikeda wouldn't have met such an end. He realized that merely being good students wasn't enough. They needed to be strong, or else it was meaningless. Before he could strengthen his students, he knew he had to become stronger himself. Thus, he learned karate to defeat enemies and turn those who harmed his students into gamblers. His tutoring classes eventually became a middle school, and the original classroom served as a warning to the weak. He would stop at nothing to aid his educational endeavors, which is why he agreed to the assassination plot. But now, both the strong and the weak were distancing themselves from him, and only death awaited him. However, in Asano's view, destroying the Earth wasn't necessarily bad. At least everyone would share the same fate, and his students wouldn't suffer misfortune. At a critical moment, Koro-sensei protected him using his shed skin. Koro-sensei had long known Asano might resort to suicide. They were both stubbornly passionate about education, willing to risk their lives to fulfill their educational missions. Koro-sensei had even spoken to Asano's former students, whose education from decades ago embodied the ideals he pursued. Koro-sensei was fortunate to encounter Class E, where individuals with similar experiences could unite, overcome challenges, and become confidants for each other. In fact, it wasn't Koro-sensei who created Class E, but Asano himself, continuing his past educational philosophies unconsciously. Koro-sensei taught his students assassination not to kill, but to equip them with the skills to survive. These words reminded Asano of his past with Ikeda. Ikeda used to skip classes, and Asano had told him that he could skip if he ever managed to beat him in basketball. This was quite similar to Koro-sensei's approach. However, Asano didn't think his views over the past 10 years were wrong, as many strong individuals had come from his school. But out of respect for Koro-sensei's approval, he agreed to keep Class E and even join the assassination efforts in the future. Koro-sensei welcomed this, believing that daggers suit the strong. After leaving, Gakushu was waiting to have dinner with Asano, especially after a tough day, deserving a good meal. Asano advised him to give up trying to surpass him, as he was continually progressing, both as a teacher and a father. Meanwhile, the National Defense Department was brewing new plans, and after the storm, it remained to be seen whether Koro-sensei would still be a teacher. The girl witnessed her sister being killed by a monster, but was powerless to stop it. After her own investigation, she identified the murderer. Years later, she disguised herself as a harmless student and also possessed monster tentacles. She trapped Koro-sensei in a pit lined with a special material deadly to him, from which there was no escape. Koro-sensei could only slow his fall by clinging to the pit walls. Kayano prepared to deliver a fatal blow, but Koro-sensei quickly contracted his energy, causing a massive explosion that allowed him to escape. It turned out that Kayano's real identity was Aguri's sister, and she saw Koro-sensei as the murderer. Although unsuccessful this time, she now understood Koro-sensei's abilities and was confident she could kill him in their next encounter. Despite the pain caused by the tentacles, she endured it effortlessly, showing remarkable resilience. Her classmates later discovered that Kayano's real name was Akari, a genius actor capable of mastering any role. She perfectly hid her murderous intent through her acting skills while in Class E, where her assassination talent surpassed anyone else's. Initially, she was going to meet her sister after work, but when the research lab exploded, she rushed in despite the danger, only to find her sister dead in the monster's arms. After the monster left, she found a letter it had left for the executives, revealing it would become a teacher in her sister's class. Realizing she needed equal power to confront the monster, she implanted a drug she found in the lab into her body, dyed her hair, and falsified her records to successfully enter the school. To avoid drawing attention, she stayed close to Nagisa, playing a supporting role and silently enduring excruciating pain. Shiro found her and hoped to act together once she was ready, but Itona's situation made Kayano distrust him. She was willing to sacrifice her life to kill Koro-sensei, hoping only that Shiro would not interfere. Meanwhile, the students had confirmed Kayano's identity. They wanted to know why Kayano called Koro-sensei a murderer and hoped he would reveal the truth, as Aguri was their former teacher. Koro-sensei agreed to disclose everything once they found Kayano. At that moment, he received Kayano's challenge. That night, everyone gathered in the back mountains. Koro-sensei warned Kayano to remove her tentacles immediately for treatment, or she would risk her life. However, Kayano thought he was just bluffing. She remembered that she had pretended to be a weak girl for her final plan, believing it was the only way to avenge her sister. Everyone felt the loss of teacher Aguri, who was a passionate and good teacher. Over the year, they realized that Koro-sensei could not possibly be a murderer. There must have been a misunderstanding. Kayano's current actions were also not typical of a killer. Despite this, Kayano was determined to go her own way. She concentrated all her heat in the tentacles and then ignited a ring of fire to form a battlefield. She was in top condition, and her senses were very sharp. Kayano attacked Koro-sensei and soon tore off one of his arms, gaining the upper hand. However, Itona noticed that her mind was being eroded by the tentacles. If this continued for a few more minutes, she would die regardless of whether she could avenge herself. At this point, Koro-sensei sensed Kayano's desire to live and, risking danger, summoned a clone to seek help from everyone. They needed to quickly remove Kayano's tentacles. The abnormal flames on her tentacles were burning her life force. If this continued, her life force would be drained. The only solution was to remove the tentacles during the battle. Koro-sensei planned to expose his weakness deliberately and attract Kayano's attack. When struck, her killing intent would weaken. The students had to find a way to make Kayano forget her murderous intent at that moment. If they could do so, he could remove the tentacles with minimal damage. However, during this time, Kayano's tentacles would continue to target his heart. If completely destroyed, Koro-sensei would undoubtedly die, but he planned to shift his vital point to buy time. However, Irina did not believe the kids could pull it off. Nagisa starts to think calmly. Kayano is very excited right now. Nagisa cannot use his special technique. Both daggers and snipers would harm Kayano. However, Kayano has already pierced Koro-sensei's heart. Seizing the opportunity, Koro-sensei restrains her. He promised Aguri he would never give up on Class E, and he intends to keep that promise. Seeing this, Nagisa hesitates no more. He covers Kayano's mouth with a snake-like suffocation. He forbids Kayano from claiming it was all an act. After a 15-hit combo, Kayano faints into Nagisa's arms. Koro-sensei immediately removes her tentacles. Although Kayano is fine, Nagisa feels shy. Irina comments on his kissing technique. Suddenly, Koro-sensei coughs up blood. His heart is damaged and needs time to recover. But Shiro suddenly launches a surprise attack. Upon seeing Shiro remove his mask, Koro-sensei realizes his true identity is the genius scientist Yanagisawa. Soon after, Kayano wakes up. Seeing Nagisa, she blushes, but tells everyone that she indeed came to Class E with murderous intent. However, after a year of interaction, she realizes Koro-sensei is not the monster she imagined. She starts to doubt there was a misunderstanding, hence her hesitation. Recently, her tentacles suddenly erupted, and she could no longer control her murderous intent, leading to the current tragedy. But no one blames her, as she is part of the class. Koro-sensei also promises to reveal the truth, hoping Kayano would listen to his side of the story. Her words deeply move Kayano, who sincerely apologizes. The classmates forgive her. Koro-sensei didn't plan to reveal his past, but he didn't want to lose everyone's trust in their bond, so he had to disclose his secrets. 2 years ago, he was known as the Reaper, an assassin born in a harsh slum. The only truth he believed was that people die when they are killed, making assassination the perfect job for him. After killing thousands, he earned the name Reaper, but was betrayed by his apprentice and captured by Yanagisawa, becoming a lab rat subjected to human experiments all day. Aguri was his monitor, and upon meeting, the Reaper saw her as a useful ally since Yanagisawa was her fiancé, with no real affection between them, often abusing Aguri. The Reaper would chat with Aguri whenever possible, feigning smiles to appeal to her, and their relationship grew. Yanagisawa's core research was to trigger antimatter in living beings, and although the daily experiments were torturous, enduring them meant gaining powerful abilities. One day, when Yanagisawa was about to abuse Aguri, the Reaper couldn't stand it and knocked Yanagisawa out. After realizing Aguri was a teacher, he often helped her prepare lessons, and Aguri felt he was more suited to teaching than she was. However, the Reaper disagreed because his first student, seeking to replace him, had betrayed him. Aguri believed the student did so just to get more attention from the Reaper. When Yanagisawa regained consciousness, he knocked out the Reaper and found that the powers inside him were growing. Yanagisawa threatened to use Aguri as a hostage if the Reaper tried to escape. Soon, the Reaper experienced a rejection reaction, and his body began transforming into something non-human, which worried Aguri. This concern made the Reaper realize for the first time how pleasant it was to be cared for. On the anniversary of their first meeting, Aguri decided to celebrate it as his birthday and gave him a tie as a present. Unfortunately, a wall separated them, and she couldn't put it on him herself. Aguri was tired from worrying about her students and the pressure from Yanagisawa and wanted some encouragement from the Reaper. He turned his hand into light, sneaked it through the vent, and gently touched her face with his palm. This time, His smile was genuine, not feigned. Soon after, an accident occurred. Mice injected with antimatter on the moon suddenly released energy that destroyed 70% of the moon. Yanagisawa calculated that the same would happen to the test subject on March 13th next year. He planned to kill the Reaper. Aguri immediately ran to warn him. The Reaper realized it was time to leave. Aguri wanted to stop him, but she couldn't even qualify as a hostage against his tentacle form. After dodging countless bullets, the Reaper instantly killed soldiers with his tentacles. Then, a spear designed to counter his tentacles pierced his body. Unexpectedly, to Yanagisawa, the Reaper did not die but became fully enraged. While dodging bullets, the Reaper threw a spear that blinded Yanagisawa's left eye. He then began a massacre, destroying the entire lab. Thinking he would die in a year anyway, he considered destroying the world now. In a critical moment, Aguri hugged him and successfully prevented Koro-sensei from destroying the world. However, this accidentally triggered a landmine, and a spear instantly pierced her body. Holding her, Koro-sensei regretted that his great power could not save her. But Aguri said it was okay even if he killed her, because he was very important to her. The Reaper realized he would never meet someone like her again. In her final moments, Aguri asked him to spend the remaining time teaching those poor children, so they wouldn't linger in darkness like him. The Reaper found Aguri's flaws charming and decided to become a good teacher, continuing to care for her students. When he put on the tie, Koro-sensei was officially born. He vowed to use all his strength to fulfill Aguri's ideals. This was his past. He learned from Aguri to see people as they are, not to judge them by their flaws, and he would do his utmost to help his students reach their fullest potential. March 13th is the final deadline for Earth's explosion, and also the school's graduation day. It is now January 6th, and the assassination classroom is on summer break. Yet, no one is attempting assassinations. Nagisa and others visit Kayano, but their mood remains somber. Thinking of Koro-sensei's past, they can't carry out assassinations happily and are unsure how to face the assassination classroom. The third term quickly starts, and the mood in the classroom remains somber. Karasuma asks Koro-sensei if he had anticipated that the truth would lead to such consequences, and whether he can still fulfill his duties as a teacher. Koro-sensei responds that everything should just take its natural course. Irina explains to everyone that the most foolish way to kill is impulsively, driven by emotions and desires without any plan. The second method involves suppressing one's emotions to kill, but this also results in significant losses despite the rewards. Therefore, she hopes everyone will carefully consider their actions. Later, Nagisa gathers everyone at the hill behind the school to share his thoughts. He is unsure if he can achieve it, but still wants to find a way to save Koro-sensei. Class E, traditionally known for its unity, now faces severe divisions over Koro-sensei's past. Nagisa wants to save Koro-sensei, but Akabane believes completing the assassination is the best way to repay him. The two argue intensely. Koro-sensei, not wanting the class to split, proposes an assassination contest where the winner's plan will be followed. Recently, the truth about Koro-sensei was revealed, prompting Nagisa and some classmates to try saving him as a way to repay him. However, Nakamura opposes this, arguing that the bond between assassins and their target is essential, and deviating from this would undermine the purpose of the assassination classroom. Koro-sensei also does not want to see a failed outcome or unsuccessful students. Akabane accuses Nagisa of being stubborn and imposing his will, a common trait among geniuses. Despite Akabane's insistence, Nagisa denies this, but soon shows his intent. Akabane becomes angry upon seeing Nagisa's resolve. Nagisa quickly uses his legs to pin Akabane's head, shocking their classmates with his martial skills. Maihara and others quickly intervene to separate them. Suddenly, Koro-sensei appears, not wanting to see Class E split. He proposes deciding the matter through an assassination contest. The teams then align themselves. Red represents those who want to kill him, and blue those who want to save him. Victory is achieved by capturing the opponent's flag, or eliminating all enemies. Koro-sensei will respect whatever decision they make. Chiba and Rinka choose red, aiming to kill Koro-sensei with a single strike. After understanding Koro-sensei's difficulties, Kayano, who was also saved by him, chooses blue. Believing in science, Takabayashi and Okuda think they can find a way to save Koro-sensei and also choose blue. Taiga, Sugaya, and Mimura treating Assassination as a graduation project, opt for red. Kimura and Hazama go red, while Yukiko and Yada choose blue. Maihara and Isogai, without complex motives or intent to kill, pick blue. Itona, seeking a reward, joins red. Unexpectedly, the introverted Hinata opts for Assassination, and the only neutral one is Ritsu. Akabane and Nagisa serve as team leaders. Once the teams are set, the contest begins with Karasuma as the referee. As Takabayashi's group enters the red territory, Rinka and Chiba snipe at them. Yukiko proves formidable. She stealthily eliminates Chiba and Taiga. As an expert in war video games, this type of contest is easy for her. She also instantly takes out Sugaya. However, Akabane, anticipating her plan, waits halfway and eliminates her with a dagger. Afterwards, Akabane instructs Ryoma and 2 others to hold their position, while Mimura takes the high ground to scout and provide intelligence on the blue team's movements. With his strong scouting skills, as soon as Mimura observes the blue team's actions, Akabane sends Hazama to launch a surprise attack. Hazama quickly eliminates 2 opponents, but is then taken out by Isogai. At this point, Hinata pulls out a dagger and swiftly eliminates Kurahashi. She then attacks Kayano, but Kayano, quick and agile, steps back and draws her pistol, preparing to eliminate Hinata. However, Kimura suddenly appears and defeats her with his gun. This shows that teamwork cannot be underestimated. However, after their success, Kimura and Hinata become overconfident and act on their own, falling into Sumire's trap. This allows the blue team to even the numbers. The battle continues with constant exchanges and eliminations, but Akabane remains calm. As long as they hold the line, the blue team cannot infiltrate. Maihara and others realize that eliminating Rinka is key to victory. Nakamura, anticipating their plan, sends Ryoma and others to support Rinka, aiming to delay the opponent so she can easily capture the flag. A fierce battle ensues. Isogai and his team initiate a charge, with Isogai sacrificing himself to distract and allow Yada to successfully ambush Rinka. Then Itona takes out Yada. Maihara tries to sneak an attack, but Nakamura and others are already charging towards the blue base. However, Nagisa suddenly appears and takes them down. Akabane then realizes that he had been hiding behind Karasuma all along, successfully concealing his presence. As Maihara attempts a sneak attack on Akabane, he ends up being counter-killed. The competition has now become a one-on-one showdown between Akabane and Nagisa. Akabane knows that to truly convince his classmates, he must defeat Nagisa in his strongest area. Therefore, he invites Nagisa to a hand-to-hand combat match. Nagisa accepts the invitation, prepares his gear, and gets ready to fight. While Nagisa appears frail, he is a genius in assassination. Akabane, a genius himself, still strives to excel, and the two have always respected each other as worthy opponents. From their first year, Nagisa noticed Akabane, and their mutual interest in anime brought them together. Halfway through the term, they became friends. However, this friendship did not last long. When confronted by delinquents, Akabane beat them severely. Seeing Akabane excel in many areas made Nagisa start to feel inferior. After Akabane was suspended, their relationship returned to being just classmates. Akabane's distancing was not out of disdain, but because he found Nagisa very dangerous. He always wanted to provoke and then crush Nagisa's talents. The suspension further strained their relationship, but the assassination classroom provided the stage they needed. They would defeat each other and have everyone accept their views. After losing his dagger, Nagisa no longer had an advantage and was severely beaten by Akabane. Nagisa seized an opportunity to counterattack, but his strength was too weak to cause any harm. Just as Akabane was about to finish the fight, Nagisa unleashed his ultimate move, pushing him back. He then drew a dagger to stab Akabane, but instead threw it away and used a shoulder hold to restrain him. As long as Akabane couldn't break free, his major artery blood flow would slow down, causing him to lose consciousness gradually. Nagisa used this technique to defeat Akabane, aiming to convincingly win over their classmates. However, a dagger previously dropped nearby caught Akabane's eye. Recalling his past with Nagisa, he chose to give up, conceding that such a seemingly weak person achieving this much meant he had already lost. After this battle, they opened up to each other, and their friendship quickly warmed up. Indeed, fighting proved to be the best way to deepen their friendship. For Koro-sensei, whether it's division or combat, both are merely educational methods. Eventually, Karasuma agreed to everyone's decision to save Koro-sensei, but only gave them a month. If no solution was found, they would proceed with the assassination. Meanwhile, external forces were still set to act. Takabayashi noted that all countries targeting Koro-sensei likely had investigative data. Ritsu mentioned she had hacked into all research facility databases. His research samples were scheduled to return from the International Space Station on January 25th. Yet they were just low-level assassins without access rights. However, Koro-sensei asked Karasuma and Irina to leave, having thought of a plan involving their responsibilities. So, the upcoming actions would be left to him and the students. The country was about to launch a manned rocket, originally with a dummy as the experimental subject. If replaced with actual people, they could sneak into the space station to steal the data. The US had used special materials to prevent data theft, meaning only the students could undertake the mission to the space station. The rocket could only carry 2 people, and everyone recommended Akabane and Nagisa for the task. One was meticulous, and the other a genius in assassination. A perfect duo. Koro-sensei promised to perfect the rocket's programming and would help alter the return route, ensuring their safety. Once the team was set, they began their operation. They cooperated well and successfully infiltrated the satellite development base. Nakamura and Yada entered the surveillance room to draw attention, while Kimura took the chance to implant Ritsu into the system. Then, Ritsu took control of the surveillance, allowing Nagisa and Akabane to sneak into the rocket through the pipelines. By this time, Koro-sensei had finished inspecting the rocket, confirming it had no issues. Soon, the rocket launched, with Koro-sensei following it, hoping the pair would not just focus on the data, but also enjoy their space journey. However, he was quickly left behind as his speed was only 20 Mach compared to the rocket's 23 Mach, marking the first time they surpassed Koro-sensei. Upon docking at the space station, American researchers immediately went to check but were ambushed by Nagisa and taken hostage. Ritsu also cut off the live feed to the ground, ensuring temporary safety. Nagisa then used the hostages and a bomb to threaten them, demanding a copy of the research data. The researchers, unfazed and admiring their bravery, noted that anyone daring enough to work in space was prepared for death. Nagisa assured them that no one would die as long as they cooperated, and their return journey would not be inconvenienced. The researchers thought them too audacious, but Akabane explained that he was fulfilling a promise to a friend and that they were students of the Assassination classroom, risking their own lives to take others. Prepared for sacrifice, they managed to persuade the researchers, who agreed to let Nagisa and his team help unload the supplies before copying the data for them. Nagisa and Akabane also took the opportunity to enjoy their space journey, a rare experience for them. However, Akabane reminded Nagisa that even if they found a way, they had to consider whether Koro-sensei wanted to be saved. Soon, they obtained the data. Akabane handed over the bomb, which turned out to be filled with sheep fat, and the dagger was also soft. It was all just a scare from start to finish, as if they were visiting a friend's house. Afterward, Ritsu, through extensive calculations, determined a safe return route for them. This time, she experienced many new things through numerous sensors, even fully sensing the life states of Nagisa and Akabane. This improved her intelligence and even allowed her to develop emotions. She felt fortunate to be in Class E Koro-sensei, then came to welcome them back, and the return capsule successfully landed on the hill behind the school. All the classmates ran to greet them. Karasuma's mentality instantly collapsed, as he didn't know how many departments he needed to apologize to. The teacher took the blame upon himself, claiming it was he who coerced the students, and the real data replacing the dummies was more convincing. The route Ritsu calculated also helped accelerate the research institute's progress, so the merits could offset the faults. After studying the data, everyone discovered that the risk of explosion in tentacle creatures was inversely proportional to their size. The larger they were, the more stable, and the smaller, the more likely to explode. Thus, the chance of humans exploding uncontrollably was very low. Regular use of a specific medication could prevent energy solidification and reduce the risk of explosion to no more than 1%. This medication was the venom Okuda had previously researched. Everyone burst into cheers, as a 1% risk was negligible. Koro-sensei no longer needed to explode. However, Isogai suddenly realized their assassination dilemma. Karasuma reassured everyone that as long as Koro-sensei remained a dangerous creature, the superiors would not stop the assassination mission. Nagisa announced their decision. If they couldn't assassinate Koro-sensei by the deadline, they would simply become ordinary teacher and students. Until then, they must wield their blades with firm belief, for the bond between assassin and target was their connection, a compulsory lesson arranged by Koro-sensei for them. Who would have thought that Koro-sensei, the strongest creature, would be immobilized for half an hour by a swimsuit photo? Asano was speechless upon seeing it and wished he could kill him on the spot. He felt that Koro-sensei had completely undermined the dignity of all middle school teachers. Upon realizing the photo was of Aguri, Asano came to terms with it and felt sorry for her. She had boundless energy and passion for teaching, and with a few more years of experience, she could become an excellent teacher. When Asano learned that Koro-sensei could be saved, he sincerely invited him to stay and continue teaching. Koro-sensei was delighted by this, seeing it as the best recognition he could receive. However, he would only teach for 1 year. Even if he survived, he planned to travel the world. Dueling with Asano had been an honor and a great experience in his teaching career. Soon, Christmas Eve arrived, but the students were busy with entrance exams. Lonely, Koro-sensei could only express his sadness with tears. Akabane decided to stay at school to accomplish the feat of a poor student surpassing the top achievers. The expressions on Class A's faces when they saw him would surely be spectacular. However, the main reason was that Gakushu sparked his fighting spirit. Nagisa was preparing to enter the high school arranged by his mother. His talent for assassination did not meet the demands of the times, leaving him somewhat confused about his future. However, while tutoring Sakura, her words suddenly awakened him. From the start, Nagisa had been her teacher, and his teaching methods were excellent. Nagisa quickly realized that everyone's choices are greatly influenced by who they admire. Some admire doctors for their ability to save lives, others pursue the skills of an assassin, but he admired Koro-sensei. Determined, Nagisa entered the examination hall, where Koro-sensei, using a clone, cheered him on at the entrance. Valentine's Day soon arrived, eagerly anticipated for its tradition of giving gifts. Kayano had already prepared chocolates, but the thought of Nagisa made her blush uncontrollably. Akabane and Nakamura seized the opportunity to tease her and planned to play matchmaker for them, aiming to tease both at once. Kayano lacked experience in confessing her feelings. Akabane took her to observe others. Sugino was ecstatic after receiving chocolates from Yukiko, although they were just a token of friendship. Rinka made her chocolates into bullets as a gift for Chiba to practice with, a flirtatious gesture unique to them. Thus, the method of confession varies by person. As long as Kayano could muster the courage to speak her heart, she could definitely win Nagisa over. But first, they had to deal with the gossip-loving Koro-sensei. Kayano used Aguri's swimsuit photo to successfully immobilize Koro-sensei for half an hour. Afterwards, she found Nagisa to give him the gift, but became nervous facing him alone. She also suspected that Nagisa might become a teacher in the future, seeing his admiration when he looked at Koro-sensei. Noticing Koro-sensei distracted, Nagisa prepared to shoot him in a surprise attack, but was out of range. Seeing Nagisa's expression, Kayano finally understood why she had fallen for him. Before, when she had only thoughts of revenge after losing her relatives, it was Nagisa's sincere, murderous intent that warmed her heart. She was grateful for Nagisa's company over the past year, but her confession turned into encouragement, as she didn't want to distract him at a critical moment. Perhaps this was the best way to love someone. Meanwhile, Irina was on a date with Karasuma. After giving him a gift, she teased him, but Karasuma stood up to leave. Irina quickly apologized. Then she passed on the students' gifts to Karasuma, surprised at his popularity. She suspected it was because everyone thought this might be the last celebration on Earth. Irina revealed her true intention for the date. She knew that although Koro-sensei's chance of exploding was less than 1%, the higher-ups would not back down. Karasuma was unaware of the specific plan, but his superiors had made it clear that this was a joint effort by major international organizations. Irina thought that Earth's destruction might not be so bad, considering the students would feel defeated and lost if they failed to assassinate Koro-sensei. She couldn't bear the thought of Koro-sensei dying at someone else's hands. As a teacher in the assassination classroom, she was concerned about her students' futures. Karasuma commented that the current Irina was too emotionally driven to be a suitable assassin anymore. Irina immediately tried to prove herself, insisting that her decades of life should not be dismissed easily. She had been carrying a heavy burden of sin for 10 years and could no longer return to a normal life. All her experiences would serve as tools to pave new paths, a lesson taught to Karasuma by the students. He firmly believed that no matter the difficulty, the students would find appropriate solutions through their assassination experiences. He invited Irina to work at the Defense Department, where her expertise would be valuable even in peacetime. The people she would save would far outnumber those she had killed. Recently, all students in Class E passed their advancement exams, and Koro-sensei was immensely proud and planned to create a graduation album. Throughout the year, with his constant photobombing and candid shots, he had accumulated over 30,000 photos. The students swarmed to destroy their unflattering pictures, but they had to admit it had been a rich and unique year. After tearing up the photos, Koro-sensei immediately gathered everyone for more pictures, with various cosplay costumes appearing. The students realized that since February, Koro-sensei had been indulging them. Karasuma noted significant progress in everyone, which explained Koro-sensei's doting behavior. Nagisa asked Karasuma if he thought the classmates were qualified. Karasuma believed everyone was an excellent student. Later, Koro-sensei planned to take everyone for a global photo tour. Upon returning, Nagisa continued tutoring Sakura in her studies. Her grades were good enough to return to the regular class, but Sakura still feared being bullied. Nagisa immediately showed her his murderous intent, describing it as the sharpest dagger. He encouraged her that if she persevered, she too would possess a powerful weapon. Later, during a career counseling session, Nagisa stated that although he wasn't as fast or strong as Koro-sensei, he aimed to become a teacher like him. Koro-sensei fully supported this. They all shared a talent that was both universal and fleeting: youth. Koro-sensei advised not to stop and to keep moving forward while they still had their youth. After the counseling, Karasuma prepared to leave. During this time, Koro-sensei would stay in the classroom to create the graduation album. Karasuma hoped it would be an educational piece. After leaving, he immediately reported Koro-sensei's situation to his superiors. Satellites in space began to gather energy. A terrifying beam of light enveloped the entire classroom. This was a penetrating laser specifically targeting tentacled creatures, capable of dissolving them while passing through all obstacles, commonly known as the Spear of Heaven. However, Koro-sensei reacted quickly and narrowly escaped. Immediately afterwards, ground weapons were activated, emitting the same type of laser but designed to create a sealed area. Any tentacle contact would result in melting, affecting even beneath the ground, known as the Shield of Earth. Subsequently, the authorities publicized Koro-sensei's identity, portraying him as a monster-threatening student and capable of destroying the planet, making him unwelcome on Earth. The Spear of Heaven had only used 20% of its energy and would be fully operational in a week for a full-force strike. Meanwhile, the students were surrounded by the media, who they continuously rebutted, claiming all accusations against Koro-sensei were slander. However, no one believed them. Suddenly, Karasuma appeared and criticized the media for frightening middle school students to satisfy their curiosity. He then took the students away, advising them to leave the matter to the higher-ups. But the students couldn't accept this. They wouldn't give up on Koro-sensei even though troops filled the streets and hills. Karasuma felt it was best to give up. Nagisa disagreed. They hadn't even properly said goodbye to Koro-sensei. Karasuma pinned Nagisa to the ground, urging him to calm down as he was powerless against the top brass's plan. After Karasuma left, Nagisa decided they would handle the situation themselves. Meanwhile, the bored Koro-sensei was maintaining the classroom. As a super creature, he had never encountered fear, but now he longed to see his students again. Class E, undeterred, began to divide tasks and scout the terrain. Soon after, everyone donned their combat suits and rushed towards the assassination classroom, determined to meet Koro-sensei. Nakamura and 2 others led the charge, breaking through the soldiers' lines. Chiba and Rinka continually thwarted reinforcements with tranquilizer darts, while Yuzuki conducted stealth attacks. Akabane remained ruthless towards enemies. The group then used drone-acquired intelligence, smoke grenades, and stun guns to eliminate 2 squads. Higher-ups questioned Karasuma about the situation. He explained that Class E had trained in the mountains all year, making the area like their playground. The officials realized Karasuma had allowed this, but he denied it, insisting it was all voluntary by the students who would find ways to break through regardless. Under Akabane's leadership, Class E was unstoppable. The traps initially prepared for Koro-sensei now played a crucial role, causing heavy losses for the soldiers. At this moment, an officer spotted them. Despite facing a formidable opponent, no one gave up. The students launched a tag team attack. Nagisa seized an opportunity for a sneak attack, followed by Akabane's leg sweep, successfully defeating the opponent. The 2 even clapped in celebration. As the man attempted a counterattack, Ryoma and others quickly intervened, preventing any mishap. Soon after, all the soldiers were dealt with, and everyone successfully reached Koro-sensei after breaking through the Shield of Earth. The officer was furious, but Karasuma warned him against acting rashly, as Koro-sensei could threaten the students, leading to a tragedy. He suggested that he and Arina should try to persuade Koro-sensei. With no other options, the officer agreed to Karasuma's request. In 1 or 2 hours, the laser would fire, and not even a full defense mode could withstand it. Kurahashi suggested that Koro-sensei use them as hostages to escape. However, now that the whole world knew of his existence, there was no place for him on Earth. The students felt some regret. If they had come forward earlier to clarify or disable the device, the situation might have changed. Koro-sensei told them it was futile. Such actions would have made them look like threats and subjected them to strict surveillance. Moreover, the launch device was heavily guarded, even monitored by anti-aircraft weapons to prevent any sabotage. The plan was flawless, a culmination of the world's intellect and effort. Being targeted was an honor for him. Koro-sensei encouraged everyone that nothing in the world was in vain. Their past efforts allowed them to travel to space for answers and break through defenses to reach the Assassination classroom. Their determination over the year to meet him, regardless of the risks, made him very happy as a teacher. Yet, Ryoma still didn't understand society. With only a 1% chance of Koro-sensei exploding, and they, being closest, were not afraid. Why couldn't others forgive Koro-sensei? Koro-sensei advised them again that in the future, they would surely be hindered by a powerful society and might not get their way. When that happens, they should not delve too deeply into questioning society, nor deny it, as it would only waste time. Instead, they should find ways to endure, settle themselves in the societal currents, and after many failures, they would surely find a satisfying outcome. At that moment, Nakamura opened her backpack and took out a cake specially prepared for today. It was the anniversary of Koro-sensei's meeting with Aguri, and also his birthday. They had come to celebrate Koro-sensei's birthday. The group then sang to celebrate the occasion. This gesture was incredibly precious to him. However, the cake was suddenly destroyed. Yanagisawa and the second Reaper chose this moment to cause trouble. The Reaper had been turned into a monster by Yanagisawa. Seeing his form, Koro-sensei felt guilty. Initially, he thought having a similar assistant would double the assassination efforts, so he took him as a disciple. To foster his loyalty, Koro-sensei continually demonstrated his power, making the Reaper realize the stark difference between them. However, constant denial spurred the Reaper to prove himself desperately. It was only now that Koro-sensei understood Aguri's words. The Reaper just wanted more attention from him. To the Reaper, Koro-sensei was not a qualified teacher. At this moment, the Reaper launched an attack. He had voluntarily undergone the transformation. His powerful tentacles, combined with his hatred, made his destructive power unimaginable. His basic capabilities were twice that of Koro-sensei. The major difference was that the Reaper's tentacles did not consider durability, unlike Itona and Kayano, who needed maintenance. Despite having only a 3-month lifespan, his energy was astonishingly strong, and his death posed no explosive threat, making him a perfect weapon. Kayano despised Yanagisawa for always using others while keeping himself out of harm's way. Yanagisawa responded to her directly with actions, injecting a serum into his neck while his other body parts had already been modified. He was prepared to die, as long as he could kill the one who took everything from him, no matter the cost. Now he could truly be called superhuman. He then teamed up with the Reaper, ready to fight and eliminate Koro-sensei, intending to inflict a wound on the students that would never heal. At that moment, Koro-sensei suddenly exerted his strength, successfully blocking the Reaper's tentacles. He used minimal force to make the Reaper's strike go astray, using sand to block the light and timing his moves to counter the attacks. He used skill to compensate for the difference in combat strength. Then, Koro-sensei prepared to face the Reaper one-on-one, hoping to bring his former student back on track through battle. Yanagisawa, however, had no place here, as the assassination classroom was meant for teaching and nurturing. Yet, Yanagisawa seized the opportunity to control the Reaper to attack the students. Koro-sensei had to use his body to block the damage. As long as Koro-sensei maintained his role as a teacher, this tactic would always work. The Reaper kept attacking the students, and Koro-sensei desperately defended against him. Soon, Koro-sensei was severely injured and began coughing up blood. Yanagisawa mocked him, saying this was the consequence of being with his students, who shouldn't have been there tonight. Karasuma drew his gun to warn Yanagisawa, but was knocked down by him. Yanagisawa continued to taunt the students, wanting to leave a lasting pain in their hearts, as they were Koro-sensei's greatest weakness. Seeing his students' guilty expressions, Koro-sensei immediately countered, saying the students risked their lives to save him and overcame various difficulties to see him. This process and their intentions were the best gifts for a teacher. Each of them was a student he was proud of, and protecting them was a teacher's natural duty. Hearing this, Yanagisawa prepared to eliminate Class E, intending to plunge Koro-sensei into misery as payback for his ruined life. Unexpectedly, Kayano intervened, successfully helping Koro-sensei out of his predicament. Just then, the Reaper launched a sneak attack, with Yanagisawa also starting to provoke. Kayano leapt up to attack the Reaper, but his tentacle pierced right through her body. Yanagisawa continued to make crude jokes, which completely ignited Koro-sensei's fury. Flames burst forth from within him, and his skin evolved into a black color, the most destructive form of the tentacle monster. Yanagisawa, seeing this, became extremely excited. Only by defeating Koro-sensei in this state could he feel satisfied. He then injected a serum into the Reaper, who instantly unleashed fierce flames. Nagisa urged everyone to seize the opportunity to leave, reminding them that escaping is also a tactic. The Reaper then launched a purple laser, which Koro-sensei countered with a burst of white energy, blending all the emotional energy he had accumulated so far. He was determined to ensure his students' safe graduation. The white energy burst, then engulfed Yanagisawa, and the Reaper's tentacles began to disintegrate. Koro-sensei reflected on his past with the Reaper, questioning if he really was a good teacher. He then plunged Kayano's dagger into the Reaper's body, avenging her and hoping to teach him better in the next life. Following this, the Reaper dissipated into the air, and Koro-sensei emerged victorious. However, there were no cheers, as Kayano was still unconscious. Koro-sensei asked Nagisa to hold Kayano. During the battle, he had already collected her blood and cells. He had been at a disadvantage earlier because he was using his tentacles to protect them. Now, he needed to reconnect each cell. He had been studying medicine all year to prevent a tragedy like Aguri's from happening again. If there were cells he couldn't repair, he would fill the gaps with his own mucus. In a few days, Kayano's cells would regenerate and replace his mucus. If needed, others could give blood to Kayano through him, and he could replenish his lost energy by eating cake. Soon, Kayano's wounds healed without any scars. Then he successfully restarted Kayano's heart with electric shock therapy. Seeing everyone happy, Koro-sensei internally asked Aguri if he was a qualified teacher now. Then, Koro-sensei collapsed, urging the students to act immediately. As assassins, they couldn't miss the opportunity when their target was weak. Their happiness was destined to be brief. Such is the nature of the assassination classroom. The students were reluctant, but the existence of the Spear of Heaven left them no choice. Dying at their hands was a unique bond they shared, everyone's wish, and the original intent of the assassination classroom. Isogai asked everyone to vote by raising their hands. Whether to let him go or to assassinate, they all chose to raise their hands. This was their answer. They wanted to maintain the bond between killer and target until graduation. Based on previous weaknesses, they held Koro-sensei's tentacles and aimed to stab his heart under his tie, fulfilling his wish. Nagisa stepped forward to accompany Koro-sensei on his final journey, and no one objected. After all, Nagisa was the undisputed main character in the assassination classroom. He then asked Karasuma and Irina if they wanted to join, highlighting it as a chance to share the bounty. Irina said she had already gained a lot, and that this moment belonged to Koro-sensei and the students alone. Koro-sensei hoped that after he was gone, Karasuma would not forget the students and continue to help them with their troubles. Karasuma promised him, stating he would never forget this year's experiences for the rest of his life. Finally, Koro-sensei wanted to say goodbye to everyone by calling roll, warning that no one should leave early or he would die unsatisfied. The roll call began, and everyone answered while looking into Koro-sensei's eyes, with many of the girls unable to stop crying. These young assassins were about to take a life, and from then on, they would surely understand the value of life more than anyone. They had studied hard, worried a lot, and thought deeply. They had given value to Koro-sensei's life as he had taught them, and they had taught him. He was content having laid the foundations for their future. He was happy this year and hoped his students would always be happy and pass on what they had learned to others, setting out on their own paths. Nagisa's hands began to tremble, and Koro-sensei extended a tentacle to calm him, advising him not to assassinate with such emotions. He wanted to see Nagisa smile as he faced the memories flooding back. Nagisa said goodbye to Koro-sensei, channeling his gratitude and regret into the dagger, like bowing in thanks, then plunged it into Koro-sensei's chest. Koro-sensei then turned into a light and dispersed above the assassination classroom. The students could no longer hold back their tears, and even the toughest among them, Akabane, began to sob uncontrollably. Tomorrow was their graduation ceremony, but they had already graduated from the assassination classroom a step early. After returning to the classroom, Koro-sensei had prepared a personalized guidance manual and graduation album for each student. Karasuma blocked the incoming troops outside, giving the students time to reminisce about Koro-sensei, as outsiders were not allowed in the classroom. When the students opened the manuals, it felt as if Koro-sensei was whispering advice in their ears. They spent a sorrowful night accompanied by Koro-sensei. When everyone woke up, Karasuma apologized, promising to handle the government and societal issues and to protect the students to the best of his ability. The students did not blame him, but hoped that Karasuma would take them to their graduation ceremony. The battle with the headquarters students was another cherished memory created with Koro-sensei. At this moment, both felt the true meaning of being teachers. They knew the students were still sad, but their smiling faces showed they had truly become stronger. The students then received their diplomas with determined looks. Asano knew this change in Class E was Koro-sensei's doing, pulling him back to his original path. Nagisa's parents came specifically to congratulate him. Koro-sensei had spoken to Nagisa's father, detailing Nagisa's progress and changes, hoping the parents would pay more attention to him. His mother also began to change, trying to reconcile with her husband to give Nagisa a happy family. Just then, the media burst in to interview Class E, but Karasuma stepped forward to stop them. Gakushu used the school flag to shield Class E, and with the help of the Big Five, they escorted them to the departing bus. Although there had been conflicts, they were still schoolmates. Afterwards, Gakushu declared a challenge to Akabane, eager to learn Koro-sensei's story. But Akabane was unafraid, as Class E never feared a challenge. Nagisa left the school in tears, knowing he would never again have such times. It was time to say a permanent goodbye to Class 3E. Soon after, the school faced severe criticism due to Koro-sensei's affairs, and Asano was forced to resign. However, his strong spirit remained unshaken. Unexpectedly, his former students came back to help, seizing the moment to repay their teacher. The 30 billion yen bounty was quickly deposited, and following Koro-sensei's instructions, the classmates set aside tuition and initial living funds, donating the rest to those in need. Karasuma's career also flourished as a result. The moon began to crumble soon after, slowly forming a smaller sphere under its own gravity, symbolizing the new moon of their year together. 7 years later, Irina had become Karasuma's bride. The classmates returned to the assassination classroom annually, as if Koro-sensei were still there. The hill behind the school remained busy with Hinata, the gymnastics teacher, training students, and Kurahashi taking children to experience nature. Other alumni thrived in their respective fields. Kayano became a distinguished actress. Okuda and Takabayashi developed a universal artificial blood. Sugino became a top university baseball player attracting scouts. Ryoma ventured into politics as a high-ranking official's secretary. Yoshida and Takuya took over their family businesses, and Itona helped in his family's factory. Ritsu connected globally with computers, securing a strong online presence, enriching her emotions, and aiding Class E immensely. Akabane passed the civil service exam, moving closer to his goals. They all believed that whatever paths they chose, Koro-sensei would support them, and his teachings would remain in their hearts forever, a legacy left behind. As for Nagisa, he still had the height of a middle school student. Meanwhile, Akabane had grown to 185 centimeters. This made teaching challenging for him as he faced discrimination from students, some even threatening to kill him if he gave orders. This threat, like a spell, instantly ignited Nagisa's fighting spirit. His killer move reappeared, swiftly subduing the mischievous students. He told them he hoped someone would manage to kill him before graduation.